Hello, everybody. Anthony Crane here with Pocket Coach. And today we are talking about threaded chat tools. Specifically, we're talking about Microsoft Teams. So if you're not using Microsoft Teams, there's actually a lot of tips here that work for other tools as well. You might still get some value out of this. But bottom line, we do have a different video for threaded chat tools in general. You should definitely check that out before even looking at this video. Once you've seen that one, however, you're going to want to maybe look at this for some MS Teams specific tips. So let me get that 5-minute timer started. And we are good to go. Okay. So first off, looking at the experiment profile, Microsoft Teams, and in this case, it just says you have selected MS Teams, you have selected MS Teams, et cetera, et cetera. Here at the bottom, you have selected MS Teams and you've achieved the skills listed in that. So that's why it's so important that you do look at the threaded chat experiment and get the deal from that. But in the meantime, we're going to just show you 19 tips that I happen to love about using MS Teams. Now, this is 2 years old. It's been 2 years or maybe even 3 since I've had a client that was using MS Teams. Right now, my client uses WebEx. So some of these might be out of date. The next time I get another MS Teams client, I'll update this video. Until then, though, I think that there's going to be a lot of really good stuff in here. So tip number 1, understand the components of the UI so that when you talk to people, you can talk much more quickly. The feed is this part over here where all the good stuff is happening. There's a search bar, and you have to move into the search culture if you're going to be successful with these agile tools. Stop browsing for things, start searching for things. Think Google, not a file browser on your computer. There's a chat button here. I usually get to these things using shortcuts. I rarely even use these buttons. Then you have your tree browser, which has all of your different channels that you have going on. And then you have the banner here on the left that shows different things. You have a banner notification here in red. You can pin channels. So this is a pin channel, things that you're going to need a lot. Unread activities, anything with a black bold on it. You can hide teams as well for things that you just don't need that often. You can hide them here and you still can see them. It's just, it puts them out of your face a bit more. And then there's a last red line that shows you anything above that you haven't read. Of all the threaded chat tools, I like the way MS Teams does threads better than all of them. When you add a comment as a thread, it brings that whole conversation to the bottom of the screen, unlike Slack and WebEx Teams where it leaves them up top somewhere. So you have to scroll back to find threaded replies, which I find very annoying. Here, it always just pulls it to the bottom. So it's my favorite way to handle threads. And I'll tell you, having been in companies that use all of these, I can tell you that people who are in MS Teams use threads much more often and much more effectively than people who are in other tools. Okay, so that's tip number 1. We have 18 more to go, and my time box is half over. So maybe I'll give you a quick overview of the rest of them, and then you can decide if you want to stick around for a deep dive as I go into them. So number 1, MS Teams is going to replace, it says 4 tools, but I see 5 down there. So let's update that guide right now. 5 different tools will be replaced by MS Teams. We'll talk about what those are. You should have a processing strategy, and we'll talk to you about a good processing strategy. You should have a good team and channel architecture. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the fact that a channel is not a file folder. And a lot of people who first come into Teams who are used to computers think it's a file structure. And they're like, why is this chat thing first? Why isn't the file folders thing first, right? That's because it's a mind shift from that. So we'll talk about that. You can't add people to a channel. You have to add them to each team. Everybody can see every channel. There is private channels now. There wasn't back when I was doing this. It was just coming out. Notifications is key. If you don't know how to set notifications, it's critical that you master that or else you'll get overwhelmed. And then we'll talk about @channel and when to use it. We'll talk about replying to with threads. We'll talk about adding a tab for your Agile workboard. And then we'll talk about @team, @general, and @channel and how those are different from each other. We'll talk about the wiki. The back button is more powerful than you might think. The search button is is like the search-based culture. We'll talk about the use of chats as private channels. Again, this is less important now that you can actually create private channels. Back here, when we couldn't, having a chat with a number of people was a nice way to work around that. In this case, don't worry about structuring your folders until you actually have clutter, and then go in there and just continuously improve your organizational structure together. And again, don't create empty folders that just makes people frustrated when they open them up. There's nothing there. MS Teams may not be a system of record. We'll talk about what the impact of that is, and then we'll look at forms and at praise. So there you go. Those are all the tips we're going to cover. So in the next 5 minutes, probably 10 minutes, I will go back over this list now and show you what we can about these things. So this is your pivot or persevere moment. If you had your fill, congratulations. We'll see you in the next video. If you want to get a deep dive on the topics I just covered, go ahead and stick around. And by the way, you can always fast forward until you see the part that you're interested in and then listen in. Okay, so I'm going to reset this for another 5 minutes and let's get into it. Okay, so MS Teams is going to replace 5 different tools for you. No more email, no more chat tools, no more Slack or WebEx, no more cell phones even. You can use your cell phone, but rather than getting their number, you can call them directly in WebEx. And file storage as well. No more SharePoint or whatever it is, or OneDrive, whatever Dropbox that you're using. So in email, you have to make a commitment. If you decide to use these tools, the commitment is, I will never email someone about work again. That's a coworker. If they're an outsider who doesn't have access to Teams, that's fine. But for a coworker, and by the way, you can train people. If you email me and in any Agile account, whatever their threaded tool is, I reply to you with the threaded tool. I'll cut and paste your email and say, hey, I'm moving this into the chat tool because I don't email anymore. I literally read email only on demand. When someone says, I sent you an email, please check it. That is the only time I check email anymore. It's all done here. Now people are like, oh, that's too much. That's too much threaded tool, and now it's just as bad as email. There's so many reasons why that sentence is wrong, and hopefully if you look at the threaded chat tool, you'll understand why that is. Anybody who thinks there's too many channels, or that there's too many messages, and some of those should be in email, they just don't understand the culture yet. Okay, so here's the commitment. You will always use the chat tool. You will use @mentions on your tools instead of emails, and you will clear notifications in Teams before reading email. So back up here, we get these little red badges and stuff. Your commitment is, I'm going to clean out all my red badges, and then I can go check email. You do that, and you're going to start to change the culture of yourself and everyone around you. Use it to chat with people. You're not going to need WebEx or Slack. You can actually direct video call people. Your cell phone, if you install the app on your phone, you can actually call people and have a video conversation or audio without using their phone number. You don't even need to know people's phone numbers anymore. And file storage. So MS Teams is built on SharePoint, but it's way more user-friendly. But because it's built on SharePoint, it has a far more robust way of doing version control and helping you find your files than, say, Slack or WebEx does. So you're going to replace all those tools. Next, you need a collaboration processing strategy, right? So this is the MS Teams first commitment. Before checking email, I'll clean up MS Teams. You do that, the culture changes. So a couple of things. One, organize your bar. So, you have all these different things here. It's going to get busy. You're going to hide your teams that you don't use much. Just put them at the bottom. You'll still be able to see if there's an alert there. And if there's a red badge there, it'll all still be quite visible, but it's collapsed. And you get to those last, okay? You can drag the teams around. So bring your most important teams to the top. You can hide channels that you don't use much within a team. So not just a team, but a channel within a team, you can hide as well. And then you can pin channels that you use the most. So all kinds of cool things to help prioritize your work. That's part of your prioritization strategy. In terms of processing notifications, here's the order I like to use. First, I clear all chat notifications. So I go to my chats first because I'm kind of the bottleneck there. If they chatted me, no one else can reply to that. Then all items with a badge alert, which is that red symbol, and it's bold. So with a badge alert, you would see here, this is bold, but there's no red. So that means activity has happened, but they didn't directly message me or use a keyword that I care about. So if there was a red badge on there, those are the ones I clear first, okay? So, so chat notifications, badge alerts, then you can check your email, okay? Or you can go all in and make this your last step. I don't even look at this at all. But for people who are struggling to make the transition, if I could just get them to do these 2 things before email, it's a compromise. After you do your email, then you can go to any bold channel that doesn't have that red badge, okay? So you can see these 3 here have bold on them, but no red badges. And notice I say here, this could be once a day. Once a day, I'll clean up my Black channels, maybe before I pack up for the day or whatever, or maybe when I start off the morning. That's when you do the bold channels because they didn't have any red stuff on them. Then you can also filter alerts for unread and clear. So there's an alerts area. And when you go to your alerts area right here, you can actually say, show me only the unread. And it's fun because as you read them, they disappear. So it's kind of like an automatically clearing up to-do list. So that's a fun way to get through all the stuff. And again, that might be something you do once a day. And then finally, hidden bold channels can be probably ignored forever. So it, like down here, you can see I have 2 bold channels, your administrators in general. They're bold and they're under hidden. I'll probably never look there. I'll probably only look there if I see a red badge on one of these, and then I'll see what, why did I get red badged? So there you go. That's an example of prioritization strategy. It all starts with saying, I'm going to do these threaded chats before I switch to email. Okay, next up, it looks like we're out of time. So our next topic, we're going to get into teams and channel architecture and continue through the list. Stick around if you're having fun. I'm going to reset my timer and start it again. Okay, next 5 minutes. So team and channel architecture, this is huge. When you architect your channels and your teams, you have to have a good strategy or things can get confusing. So think of each team as representing a team dedicated to one or more products. So every channel represents one of their products. So if you're a team with 5 products, you would have 5 channels, 1 per product. And then you don't email each other. You talk about the product in its appropriate channel. If you have, and by the way, it could be sub-products, like the UI could be a sub-product and the database could be a sub-product of a bigger product, right? Or it could be, literally like the Happy Meal and then the McCafe in the McDonald's team, right? Whatever. So you can have actual products or sub-products. And now when I post a message in Happy Meal, people don't have to like figure it out. They know, oh, this is about the Happy Meal. So it reduces your context switching time. Again, you'll see more of that if you watch another video. The team's general channel is for items that can span products. So now if every channel is a product, your general is cross-product, okay? Or if it's something that's not product specific or product related. Now create one team named after the entire organization. So for example, I work at Cprime, maybe a single thing called Cprime. And then in general, you're going to have all your all hands communications. General, you can't hide it. You can't not be in it, right? So it's kind of your force there. So it's a perfect place for all hands comms. And then you might have your comps in that general place as well. Cop Agile, cop teams. If you don't know what a community of practice is, or a guild, if you're like, the Spotify vocabulary, it's a collection of like-minded people who are trying to advance a skill set within the entire company. So test, product ownership, coaches and scrum masters, et cetera. Don't form any in advance, form them when the passion arises. So basically your organization team will only have general announcements and communities of practice to bring the organization together. And then every other product will have a team space with their, if you have one team with multiple products, it'd be a team space with their products. If you have a product with multiple teams, then you might have a product as the main thing with the teams as the channels, okay? Now, if we take a look at this little folder here, which has some assets, you'll see here's some example channels that we have. This was from a video that I was watching that Microsoft put out. And as I read these, it was pretty wild to me that some of these clearly are like waterfall. Some of these are clearly thinking of file structure, and some of these are really thinking of product, right? And that's what you want to do is be thinking about product. So look at this: general, design, documentation, production, research. So this might be products, or it could be starting to lean towards the waterfall a little bit, right? But then here we have general communications, email communication, voice, desktop, and hardware. So these might be product areas for this IT service incidents. Modern project management, general build out design reviews, move logistics, plans and reports. So this is getting into like a more of a file structure and not really a product oriented architecture. We're looking over here at HR, general events, recruitment reviews, and training. Now, these are starting to get into possible products of HR. So those are kind of interesting. So as you design your channels, just be sure to think about whether you're really building product oriented thinking or whether you're just falling into old school waterfall stuff or thinking of it as a file structure. Speaking of thinking of things as a file structure, tip number 5 of 19, a channel may have no files at all. And this blew people's minds. Like they were like, a channel is just a repository of files. It is not. The purpose of a channel is to have a channel of communication. That's why they're called channels. And that's why the channel comes first and the files come second when you have MS Teams. So you might not have any files. It's just a way to talk to each other, communicate. The only time you have files is if you're in your process of collaboration, you need to create a file, and then you start to work with files, and then you start to architect a file structure for that channel, et cetera. But think about the fact that it's all about comms And and actually the fact that you have file structure is actually second. And that was a big mind twist for a lot of people. You cannot add people to a channel. So if this is still true, they belong to the team and they have access to every channel. So don't let that confuse you. And that's the agile mindset, right? Everything should be open. Notifications is critical. So if you see here, and again, these might have evolved since 2-3 years ago here, but we have a channel here, and you can say all new posts, notify me every time. And then you'll have choices. Where do you want that to be? In the banner, in the feed only, or off, right? So banner and feed. So what does that mean? So here in the feed, if you look, these 3 red items on the right, this is the feed. Remember we called this the feed earlier on? So at team, and you'll see there's like a picture of 3 little people. At channel is like a file cabinet, and at you is an @ sign. So the feed will notify you. And so when you say feed in these options down here, that's what it's doing, is it's turning on this right-hand side. If you say in the banner, that means it's just going to show it over here, okay, in one of these areas. So banner and feed. Let me reset that timer. And we're going to go another 5. If you're interested, stick around. If you've had enough, it was fun having you. So that's what they mean by banner and feed, or only in feed, right? Then it doesn't go up in the banner, it just goes in the feed. So include all replies. I always turn that on. I want to know what's going on in a thread here. Channel mentions, notify me anytime this channel is mentioned, and all that. So there's lots of things you can do. So here's what we recommend for notifications. Each member of the team should use a combination of notification settings and channel hide show. So those are the 2 things we use together to get our world in order. For each team that you are on, for each product channel they have, ask yourself what your role is for that team, or what your role is for that channel in that team. If you're a core member, you are the core member, you're making this happen. Without you, things are going to be in trouble. You're going to want to make sure you show the channel. You want to set the notifications to the maximum, banner and feed. And if you want to message other members, just type a message. Don't use @ channel. This @ channel, it gets way overused, right? Don't do that. It's like reply all. Don't do that. All the primary core members should already be at maximum notifications, so they should be able to just kind of watch this. Instead, just type. So what do you use @ channel for? Stakeholders. So if you are an engaged stakeholder, someone who's really actively engaged, but you're not a core member, you're going to want to show the channel, and you want to set it to banner and feed, all new posts, but all new posts set to none. So you don't care about new posts. The only thing you care about are when they say @ channel or @ stakeholder name yourself, right? And the team should have that working agreement that they only use @ channel if they want to engage stakeholders. For their own core team, they don't have to say @ anything. Finally, you're more of an FYI person on this team product. So in that case, you're going to hide the channel. You're going to set all notifications to off, and you'll only see @ your name. So that's kind of the way you want to see that if you're a stakeholder. You do that, and it's going to be a lot easier. Okay, moving along. Only use @ channel to send messages to your stakeholders. So we just sort of saw that. It's not for core team members. Number 9, reply to messages to keep your threads together. Don't treat the channel like a chat room where you always put stuff at the bottom. I don't know. We had chat rooms when we were younger, and now we just put stuff at the bottom. If you're replying to a thread, put it there to keep it together. It makes searches much more effective later on in the future. Add a tab for your Agile workboard. So you can add tabs to MS Teams along the top here, and you can see here post, files, wiki, Agile shoebox. You can add a tab here for your Jira board, or your whatever board, your ADO board, whatever it is. So do add a channel to your board. It lets people get to your workboard a lot faster. At team and at general do the same thing, because everyone is forced to the favorite general, right? So if you say at team, and if you say at general, it actually has the same effect. So whatever your choice is. At channel is to mention the whole channel, but if you're in the general channel and you say at channel, it's the same thing as at general. So if you're sitting in general, at channel, and at team will all do the exact same thing. So it's just confusing. Don't forget to use a wiki. Wikis are a big part. We have a separate video for wikis. So just know that you should be using them instead of Word documents, instead of Excel files, for agendas. Instead of putting an agenda in an Outlook invite, put a link to your wiki. And that way, if you change the agenda, you don't have to keep resending invites. To drive your sprint review, and use link to jump to items, to capture working agreements, etc. So we'll talk more about that in the threaded tool. The back button is not intuitive, but it's super useful. People always hit this back button trying to navigate folders. So it's this button right up here. It's a back button right there. You can also hit Alt back arrow, which works in every browser. So the back button does not navigate folders. It navigates the breadcrumbs of different screens you've been on. So mastering that back button is quite powerful, but you got to break the thought that it's going to navigate back through folders, which it does not do. The search button, again, I mentioned you want to move into a search-based culture. Again, it isn't intuitive until you play around with it, but once you do, you'll realize that when you hit the search, they're going to give you options to filter out the kinds of results you see, and you master those, and you're going to be able to find stuff like files and conversations a whole lot faster. You can use chats to create private channels. Again, you can now just create private channels, but if you just create a chat with a bunch of people, only the private channel people will see that. Only structure files as if you start to get a lot of files in your channel, don't preemptively structure those and then do it, have a volunteer do it and everyone else can just pitch in and adjust it. One thing we do is our sprint owner, we rotate who owns the sprint instead of having a scrum master. We still have a scrum master for bigger impediments, but whoever the sprint owner is, they get to, at the end of each sprint, reorganize the data if they don't like the way it looks. So everyone eventually gets their say. Understand that MS Teams may not be a system of record. Find out, because if it's not, for example, one client, work was only kept for 3 years. So they had to move stuff out of MS Teams in order to have it long-term. @Forms is a great way to create an instant poll. If you haven't activated @Forms yet, if you want to do like a survey, like, hey, do you want to go to lunch at 1, 2, or 3? You could do an @Form for that. So super duper useful, and it teaches you how to use it. And finally, @Praise is a wonderful way. It gives you a set of ways to praise someone, like, great job, or congratulations, or great team member. And it's a great way to show a little icon of love for people. And that is my 19 tips of MS Teams. I cannot wait to get back to a client that's using it again so I can see what's changed over the years, because I know it's going to be good stuff. So my name is Anthony Crane. I hope you found this video useful, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.